Kenna was a game that I was cautiously excited for. It looked beautiful and was reminiscent of one of, if not my favourite franchise ever in The Legend of Zelda, but it was also Ember Labs' first outing in the video game space. Of course, they made the absolutely fantastic Majora's Mask animated short, but I was hesitant over the game feel. How would Kenna feel to control? Would the combat be good? And of course, how would the world be designed? I was buying it day one regardless, so here are my thoughts on Kenna Bridge of Spirits on PS5. I'm going to break it down into the good parts, the not so good parts, and then explain why you have to play this game. However, I think there is a small section of people who should avoid it. So the good parts. Do I have to explain how great this game looks? From minute one it's clear to see that it's an absolute marvel of visual design and animation. The world is vibrant with colours and particle effects popping left, right and centre. The game pretty much speaks for itself in this regard. It gives you every opportunity at a massive landscape to just get lost in, from luscious grass to the snowy mountains and everything in between. It's easily one of the best looking games I've ever played. The most striking part, however, is the use of lighting. The game in general is bright with a nice sprinkling of blue, whether it be the sky or the many lanterns to light your way to improve the mood. When contrasted with the corrupted zones, it's amazing. Even in caves, light is super important, barely being able to see, with the only light being that from Kenna's staff and whatever flowers or lanterns react with your pulse. My favourite part was seeing the change in the area as you clear it of corruption. The animations are beautiful too, especially in combat where they look so fluid. They sit on the edge of platforms, swinging their legs, or you'll find them littered around the shelves and countertops of a house. There was just something really cute about this. The visuals evoke some nostalgia in me. I can't tell exactly where it came from, but I think Kenna animates a lot like Jack from Jak and Daxter, and the game reminded me of some PS2 era platformers like Haven Call of the King, which is a game I never thought I would bring up. I've avoided all coverage for this game, as I usually do with games that I plan on covering, but I would agree with the headlines that this is reminiscent of a PS2 game. Another strong point of Kenna is the world exploration. It's nothing too deep and you can see the game falling into the same types of puzzles after a few hours, but there was an addictive quality to these. It slowly feeds you different upgrades and puzzles, and while it never distracted me from the same types of puzzles, I found myself trying to get 100% of the collectibles. It helped that the level of beauty around each corner was insane, and I could see myself going back to get all the collectibles. The puzzles were never too difficult, and if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know I don't like puzzles, so I will always commend the game for having simple yet fun puzzle design. My favourite were the time platforming puzzles that once again were the right level of difficulty. Now some might find the boss fights slightly too hard, but I loved them. They felt like baby's first Dark Souls because everything has to be compared to Dark Souls nowadays. Normal combat encounters were pretty simple, but the bosses had nicely telegraphed attack patterns that I had to spend a bit of time to figure out. I died multiple times on each boss, and when I finally beat them I felt rewarded. Luckily there's an easy difficulty for any younger or less skilled gamers out there, so they can still enjoy the game. I could see a lot of frustration in my future on harder difficulties if I do go for the platinum. While I enjoyed the boss fights, I do think the ramp up in difficulty felt a bit jarring, and I think that's something Ember Labs will have to hone in on their future releases. So with the good bits out of the way, there are two main not so good points that I would like to talk about. Firstly, the story. I had absolutely zero investment in Kenna, the Rot, or any of the characters around her. Kenna is a spirit guide that I think is there to help people pass on to an afterlife of some description. Her dad is somewhat important, but once again, I couldn't care less. The other spirit guides are corrupted souls that you have to save and are completely unmemorable. They even failed to create a connection between me and the Rot, which shouldn't be hard to do because of how adorable they are. Usually story doesn't really bother me all too much, and I was hoping for an emotional ending, but it just didn't happen. Secondly, let's talk about the combat and progression. In the boss fights I enjoyed the combat, except for the parry mechanic. I think this could have used a bit more refinement, as I could never really get it to work as good as I'd like it to. Normal combat encounters are pretty fun with a decent variety of enemies, but I do wish there was a handful more just to switch it up a bit. I like the bow, especially when in slow motion. Charging up a Rot arrow with the particle effects looked and felt amazing. Other than that, the light attack didn't feel good, but everything else was decent. There was a nice sense of progression and upgrades to choose from, but I think the game blew its load too quickly. It felt like the majority of the abilities were given within the first few hours, and then later there were a few new additions and only boring skills to choose from, like adding extra arrows or extra shield. They could have either added more abilities or upgrades, or spread them out slightly so it felt like the game was constantly ramping up rather than a massive spike and then a plateau. I think the lack of a good story is a major issue, but it still can be fixed in their future projects. My issues with the pacing is minor, and it is certainly a lot easier to fix in the sequel if they choose to do so. If you have any nostalgia for PS2 action platformers, then you have to play this game. The progression and level design feels distinctly PS2 with some quality of life improvements like fast travels and easy way to track collectible. I had a massive smile plastered across my face the whole time I was playing this. It felt new but also transported me back to the early 2000s playing Jak and Daxter for the first time and being in awe of the slick animations and colourful world. The combat is more in depth than games of that era, so that's a nice update too. I just wish I had some investment in the world and characters. And I think that's where the game falls flat. If you want a strong narrative and have no connection to the 6th generation of consoles, then I would probably steer clear of this game. Maybe wait for a sale when it's closer to €20, then you have very little to lose for a high quality game. All I can say is that I'm glad the game exists and I can't wait to see what their next adventure will be. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate your time. Next video will be on Diablo 2 Resurrected, and then after that will be my next long form video, which will be Astral Chain, so stick around for them. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Discord down below, and see you all in the next video.